Imagine you are sitting on your couch at, 2 in the morning.
We've all been there.
Right. Your stomach is in absolute knots, your head is pounding, and you just can't sleep. So what do? You open your phone.
Naturally.
Yeah, and within like 3 taps, a Nobel Prize-winning Harvard doctor is looking right at you from a beautifully lit YouTube studio, telling you exactly which obscure supplement protocol will fix your precise pain.
It feels like the ultimate modern health hack, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, you've bypassed the waiting rooms, the copays, the confusing insurance forms.
The horrible magazines in the waiting room.
Exactly. And you have gone straight to the absolute peak of global medical authority. But today, we're going to look at a source that argues why that brilliant, world-renowned Harvard doctor on your screen might actually be, well, the absolute worst person you could possibly listen to when you are sick.
Which just sounds incredibly counterintuitive, especially in our current information age.
It does.
Because, we've been conditioned to believe that more data and higher pedigree data automatically leads to better outcomes.
Right. More is better.
Yeah. We feel empowered because we carry the entire digitized summary of human medical knowledge right in our pockets. But that feeling of empowerment often masks a very dangerous reality.
Which is?
We are confusing access to information with the context required to actually apply it safely to our own specific bodies.
And untangling that confusion is our mission for you today. Welcome to this deep dive. We are going to completely cut through the absolute noise of digital health advice.
There's a lot of noise out there right now.
So much noise. We want to really understand the delicate and frankly surprising balance between internet authority, ancient wellness practices, and the unglamorous reality of modern localized medicine.
And to anchor this conversation, we have a really fascinating source today.
We do. We are looking at a transcript from a creator named Osman. He is known online as the Blind Muslim Yogi. And his background completely flips the script on what you'd expect from this kind of conversation.
It really does, because Osman is a master-level bioenergy healer.
Yeah, with telepathic healing capability, actually, which he explains uses the principles of quantum entanglement.
Right, and he specializes in critical care, recovery, and terminal illnesses. Plus, he is a yoga and meditation teacher who has been practicing these ancient sciences for 50 years.
50 years. I mean, he attained his first samadhi experience by the age of 19.
Which is incredible.
Yeah, and he has studied extensively from various schools of thought from the Far East, the Middle East, and the West. And he brings a highly scientific approach to all of this.
Which is precisely what makes his framework so compelling.
Right.
If you look at the broader landscape of the wellness industry, someone with his specific background.
50 years steeped in Eastern modalities and energy healing.
Exactly. That is typically the exact person you would expect to be inherently skeptical of traditional, localized Western medicine.
Oh, absolutely. The prevailing narrative in a lot of alternative health spaces is heavily anti-establishment. You'd think he'd be saying, like, forget the local clinic, forget the pharmaceuticals, just align your energy.
Right, just download a program and breathe.
Yeah. But that is the exact opposite of what he actually argues. The source text we are analyzing today reveals a highly practical, rigorously logical framework for choosing a medical practitioner.
He essentially gives a masterclass on why you absolutely must have a licensed local traditional doctor in an era where everyone is just running to the internet for health advice.
His message is intellectually honest in a way that is, frankly, really rare to find online these days.
It is. He doesn't dismiss his own life's work. I mean, he clearly values it immensely, but he sets very strict boundaries.
He sets the stage for a profound look at the physical mechanics of healing, the very real illusion of online authority, and the deeply human psychology that underpins whether a medical treatment actually works or fails.
So let's unpack this, because the very first major point Osman makes in the text is a direct, unequivocal warning against using YouTube, or any social media really, as your primary source for medical treatment.
Yeah, and he specifically points out that the danger isn't just the random, unqualified influencers pushing, like, sketchy diet pills.
Right, the obvious scams.
Yeah, the real danger is when you are listening to a highly qualified professional. We are talking about PhDs, professors from elite institutions like Oxford or Harvard.
Which brings us to some massive examples, because when we talk about elite health information online, we have to talk about the current podcast landscape.
Oh, we absolutely do. I mean, let's look at the Huberman Lab with Professor Andrew Huberman.
A perfect example.
Yeah, if you analyze 3 very specific episodes from his show, you see this dynamic perfectly. Like, he had Dr. Matthew Walker on for an incredibly detailed dive into sleep protocols.
Fantastic episode, by the way.
Amazing episode. And then he had Dr. David Sinclair on to discuss the cutting-edge science of longevity and aging, and another one with Dr. Andy Galpin, breaking down muscle physiology and endurance.
All absolute titans in their respective field.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Osman is saying that even when you are listening to those titans, their advice is fundamentally compromised because it is being broadcast from what he calls an idealistic environment.
That phrase, idealistic environment, is just a brilliant encapsulation of the internet's theoretical vacuum.
It really is.
It highlights the vast chasm between universal biological theory and individualized physical application. And you see this across all the big platforms.
Yeah, let's look at the Joe Rogan show, for instance.
Right.
Rogan has had guests like Dr. Peter Attia talking about medicine 3.0 and lifespan.
Yeah.
He's had Dr. Rhonda Patrick doing these massive deep dives into micronutrients and saunas.
And Gary Brecka talking about genetic methylation.
Exactly. Or look at the Mel Robbins podcast. She had Dr. Russell Kennedy on to talk about healing anxiety, Dr. Mary Claire Haver discussing menopause protocols, and Dr. Amy Shaw on fasting and hormones.
All brilliant people, all highly qualified.
But I need to push back on this just to play devil's advocate for you, the listener. If I have a complex, terrifying symptom, shouldn't I want the absolute best mind in the world giving me the answer?
It's a fair question.
Right. Like, if I have a choice between listening to a Nobel laureate who runs a multi-million-dollar research lab and the regular, everyday general practitioner down the street at my local clinic who probably hasn't read a medical journal in 5 years, why wouldn't I listen to the genius?
It is a completely natural inclination, and frankly, it is the exact logic the internet was built upon. We are biologically wired to seek out the highest authority in the room to ensure our survival.
Exactly. Why settle for less?
But what's fascinating here is how the scientific method itself actually undermines your argument. When that elite Harvard professor is speaking to the camera, they are not speaking to you.
Who are they speaking to then?
They are speaking to a statistical phantom.
A statistical fan? Wow. Okay, explain that.
Yes. They are presenting findings based on large-scale, double-blind clinical trials. By definition, a clinical trial takes thousands of people and averages out their responses to find a statistically significant outcome.
Right. They need a large sample size.
Yeah, and they discard the extreme outliers to find the median. So the advice they give is perfectly tailored to the average human being. But biologically speaking, the average human being does not actually exist.
It's like that old story about the Air Force trying to design the perfect cockpit. Have you heard that one?
I have, but tell it for the listener. It's a great analogy.
So they measured thousands of pilots, found the exact average height, arm length, and leg length, and built a cockpit for the average pilot. And it turned out of thousands of pilots, not a single one actually fit the exact average measurements.
The perfect cockpit fit literally no one.
Exactly. That is the exact dynamic at play in generalized internet medicine. The online doctor has the flawless theory, but they have zero access to your specific variables.
They don't know your genetic predispositions. They don't know your subtle childhood allergies, the specific way your liver metabolizes certain enzymes, or the fact that your cortisol levels are chronically spiked because you live next to a noisy highway.
Let me throw another analogy at this to really ground it. It feels a lot like watching a master chef on television versus actually trying to cook in your own messy kitchen.
That analogy actually reveals a dangerous biological reality because in medicine, a ruined dinner equates to a misdiagnosed illness.
Right.
But walk us through the mechanics of that cooking analogy.
Think about it. When you watch a Michelin-starred chef on a cooking show, they are operating in the ultimate idealistic environment. They have perfectly sharpened carbon steel knives. They have ovens that maintain the exact temperature to the decimal point.
And prep cooks who have already measured everything out.
Exactly, into those little glass bowls. The chef gives you the recipe, and the underlying assumption is that you have that same environment. But in reality, you are in your cramped apartment kitchen, your oven runs 20 degrees hot, you only have a dull butter knife.
And instead of fresh truffles, you have a questionable onion.
Right. The chef's advice is technically flawless. It will produce a perfect meal in their kitchen. But it is practically useless, and maybe even a recipe for a kitchen fire, if it doesn't account for your specific, messy reality.
And this is where we run headfirst into a powerful psychological trap called the halo effect, which makes us ignore our messy reality entirely.
The halo effect. Let's break that down.
It's a cognitive bias first identified by psychologist Edward Thorndike in the 1920s. It dictates that our overall impression of a person, their attractiveness, their prestige, their confidence, drastically influences how we evaluate their specific, unrelated abilities.
So, because the doctor on YouTube has the Harvard logo behind them, the expensive studio lighting, and the crisp white lab coat, our brain short circuits.
Precisely. We see the high production value in the credentials, and we blindly transfer that universal authority onto our localized biology. We fall under the illusion that because they understand the human body, they understand your body.
And Osman is trying to shatter that illusion. He's reminding us that medicine is not just about having the smartest person in the room. It is about having a practitioner who actually knows the room you're standing in.
But this disconnect between an internet doctor and your personal biology isn't just a theoretical or statistical problem.
No, it actually crashes into a massive, unavoidable legal brick wall the second you try to do anything about the advice you just heard. Which brings up a completely different layer of this problem, the actual geography of healthcare.
This is where Osman's framework shifts from philosophical observation to cold, hard logistics. It is one thing to realize your online doctor doesn't know your specific enzyme levels. It is another to face the bureaucratic reality that they couldn't legally help you even if they did.
Right. Osman points out a very simple, undeniable fact.
Sure.
These elite online doctors do not have a license to practice in your specific city or country. Local medical boards issue these licenses based on highly specific local requirements.
Furthermore, an online influencer sitting in a podcast studio in California or London cannot write a prescription that your local neighborhood pharmacy will actually accept and fulfill.
And you see this tension constantly in the business and self-optimization podcast space. Let's take The Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett.
Great show.
It is. And look at 3 of his medical-focused episodes. He had Dr. Tara Swart on to talk about neuroplasticity.
Oh.
He had Dr. Daniel Amen discussing brain scans and psychiatric health. And Mo Gaudat talking about the neuroscience of happiness and stress.
Incredible insights in all of those.
Right. Or look at the School of Greatness podcast with Lewis Howes. He brings on Dr. Joe Dispenza to talk about healing through the mind, Dr. Mark Hyman on functional medicine and diet, and even Dr. Huberman again on neurobiology.
And the frustration for the listener is you hear Dr. Amen talk about a specific brain scan protocol or Dr. Hyman talk about a functional medicine prescription, and you want it.
You want it immediately.
Yeah.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, the sheer logistics of this are deeply frustrating for a lot of patients. Your biology doesn't magically change when you cross a state line or an international border.
No, it doesn't.
A heart pumps blood the exact same way, whether you are sitting in Tokyo, New York, or a tiny rural village. So it feels incredibly insulting, almost like a scam, that a brilliant medical insight from across the globe is rendered completely useless by a piece of paper.
It looks exactly like arbitrary gatekeeping or economic protectionism from the outside.
Why should my geography dictate my access to healing?
We have to look at the mechanics of why that localized bureaucracy exists in the first place. The history of medical licensing isn't just about protecting doctors' incomes. It's fundamentally about epidemiology and patient safety.
Okay, break that down for us. How does a local license have anything to do with epidemiology?
When a medical board in your specific region grants a license, they are not just verifying that the person understands human anatomy. I mean, any textbook can teach that. They are verifying that this practitioner understands the specific localized environmental context in which they will be diagnosing patients.
Because the baseline of what is normal or probable changes drastically depending on the zip code.
Exactly. Let's look at infectious diseases. If you walk into a clinic in the northeastern United States with joint pain and a slight fever, a local doctor is immediately going to test you for Lyme disease.
Because the local tick population makes it highly probable.
Right. If you take those exact same symptoms to a doctor in the southwestern desert, they might look for valley fever, a fungal infection native to that specific soil.
Oh, wow.
The internet doctor, completely divorced from your geography, might misdiagnose you with an autoimmune disorder because they lack the environmental context of the soil and insects outside your front door.
That makes total sense. The environment dictates the probability of the disease. But what about the pharmacy aspect? Osman specifically mentions that the online doctor can't write a script your pharmacy will accept. Why is the local pharmacy such an ironclad gatekeeper?
Because of liability and localized drug interactions, the pharmacy is the final fail-safe in the medical system.
Right, they catch the mistakes.
A local pharmacist knows what specific generic formulations are distributed in your country. They know if a certain medication has been temporarily recalled in your region. And legally, if an internet doctor from 3,000 miles away prescribes a medication that violently interacts with a locally prevalent diet, who is liable for the malpractice.
The local board can't exactly subpoena a YouTube influencer in another country.
Exactly. The legal tether protects the patient. You could have the greatest, most groundbreaking medical insight in the history of the world beamed into your brain from a podcast, but without the localized infrastructure, that brilliant insight remains nothing more than the theory.
It really grounds the whole concept of healthcare. We like to think of medicine as pure, unadulterated science, but the reality is that the actual delivery of healing is heavily dependent on logistics, law, and local infrastructure.
Osman is essentially saying, look, you can use the internet to broaden your thinking to get ideas.
Sure, to understand the mechanics of how your body works.
But when it comes time to actually pull the trigger and treat an illness, you must descend from the digital cloud and step into a physical building with a locally licensed human being.
And that physical transition from being a passive consumer of internet health content to becoming an active patient sitting under the fluorescent lights of a local doctor's office brings us to what I think is the most critical and complex part of Osman's framework.
Because once you are in that office, how do you manage that relationship?
Exactly. And honestly, we are managing those relationships very poorly right now.
We really are. Once Osman establishes that you absolutely need a local doctor, he pivots to a very strong warning against a massive trend in modern healthcare, which is the habit of doctor hopping.
Doctor hopping. Yeah, it's huge right now. Osman insists that you should try to keep your medical history with one single person. He argues that this allows the doctor to have a complete physiological profile of you over time.
This is a pervasive structural issue in modern medicine, and it is largely driven by our obsession with convenience.
Let's talk about tracking data over time, because this is a big theme in holistic wellness too. Look at the Ranveer Show podcast with Ranveer Alabadia, also known as Beer Biceps.
Huge show in India, yeah.
Massive. And if you look at 3 key episodes there, say when he had Dr. Sitsinhar Barga on to talk about diet and lifestyle tracking, or his episode with Sadhguru discussing the long-term mechanics of yogic practices, or Luke Coutinho talking about holistic lifestyle medicine.
All of those guests emphasize that health isn't a quick fix. It's about long-term data.
Exactly. Even people like Tony Robbins and Deepak Chopra constantly talk about the necessity of tracking your personal health metrics over decades, not just days.
The mechanical value of this cannot be overstated. From a data science perspective, it is the difference between analyzing a single snapshot versus watching a decades-long documentary film.
Let me try another analogy here. Doctor hopping is like handing someone a single page torn out of the middle of a massive, dense, complex novel and asking them to write a comprehensive review of the entire book.
You expect them to understand all the character motivations, the hidden plot twists, and the subtle foreshadowing based entirely on page 342.
It is an impossible ask, yet we demand it of our doctors every single day.
We do.
If you jump from doctor to doctor, maybe you go to this urgent care clinic today because it's closer to your office, then next month you use a telehealth app because it's faster.
The next year you go to a specialist you heard about online.
Right. Every single visit is chapter 1. You are constantly forcing the medical system to start over. The new doctor only sees the single page you handed them that day. Your current blood pressure, your current temperature, your current complaint.
What you are fundamentally losing in that scenario is the velocity of your biomarkers. You are losing what we might call the compound interest of a medical history.
The compound interest of a medical history. I love the weight of that phrase, but I want to make sure we truly understand the mechanics of it. How does data actually compound in a medical file?
Think about how statistical trends work. A single data point, taken in isolation, is often just noise. But data collected consistently over a decade reveals a precise trajectory.
Right, a trend line.
A doctor who knows you, who has physically examined you for 5, 10, or 15 years, can spot incredibly subtle anomalies precisely because they aren't comparing you to the textbook average anymore. They're comparing you to you.
Because my normal might be the textbook's abnormal.
Exactly. Let's look at thyroid levels or resting heart rate. Let's say your resting heart rate has always hovered around 50 beats per minute. You're a runner. It's just how your engine idles.
It's my normal.
It is your normal. A brand new doctor seeing you for the very first time at an urgent care clinic looks at that number and might immediately order a battery of expensive, highly stressful electrocardiograms because, according to the generalized textbook baseline, you are bradycardic. You are out of range.
They react to the snapshot.
Right. But your lifelong primary care physician looks at that exact same number, looks at the 10 years of charts in their hand, and says, Oh, that's just how your heart runs. Nothing to worry about.
Wow, so the historical context saves you from a panic attack and a massive medical bill.
Exactly. But it works the other way, too. That same lifelong doctor might look at your liver enzymes and say, well, they have crept up by 15% over the last 3 years.
Even if they're still technically in the normal range.
Yes, they are still technically within the normal range for the general population, so a new doctor wouldn't even flag it. But for you, a 15% jump is a massive shift in velocity. Let's look into that.
That is incredible. The lifelong doctor catches the subtle creeping shift because they know the historical landscape of your specific body.
Yeah.
They see the slope of the line, not just the dot on the graph.
It is the ultimate, truest form of personalized medicine. And the irony is, it doesn't require a billion-dollar AI algorithm or a futuristic genome sequence.
It just requires a long-term, committed human relationship.
But I have to say, this feels like it goes completely against the grain of the modern world. We are actively, structurally encouraged to doctor hop now.
We are heavily incentivized to do so by a system built entirely around frictionless convenience.
Exactly. We have urgent care clinics on every corner that look like fast food drive-thrus. We have telehealth apps where you can FaceTime a random exhausted physician in 3 minutes flat.
The entire system is designed for speed and transactional encounters. We are increasingly treating highly trained doctors like gig economy workers. It's like Uber for antibiotics.
And we have to critically examine what is lost when we treat healthcare as a gig economy transaction. We gain speed, certainly.
We gain convenience from minor acute issues, like a sinus infection.
But we completely lose the deep historical context. We lose the advocate who knows our story and can protect us from the statistical noise of generalized medicine.
So, okay, you finally jump through all these bureaucratic hoops, you secure the local appointment, you decide to commit to this one physician to build that historical data.
You're doing everything right.
And then you sit down in the examination room, and the doctor is completely dismissive. Which is where Osman makes his most controversial and frankly mind-bending point about the psychology of healing.
Because loyalty is great in theory, but what if you just don't vibe with the doctor?
Right. Doesn't the idea of sticking with one person trap you in a bad situation? Osman actually does not suggest that you should just find a local doctor and blindly suffer through a terrible relationship for the sake of data.
This raises an important question, and it is where Osman's framework transitions from the logistical realities of data collection into the profound neurobiology of human connection.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Osman makes an incredibly powerful point about the nature of compliance and respect. He explicitly states that you should only go to a doctor you respect and someone whose treatment you feel actually works for you.
He is setting a remarkably high bar for that interpersonal relationship.
He is. He argues that if you do not respect the person and you do not genuinely like the person sitting across from you, it is highly unlikely that you will strictly follow their prescribed treatment protocol.
And obviously, if you don't follow the protocol, you don't heal.
But I want to really challenge this idea because on the surface, it sounds a bit overly emotional. A pill is a chemical compound. An antibiotic is going to destroy a bacteria cell wall, regardless of whether I think the doctor who wrote the prescription has a good bedside manner.
Yeah, it is a great challenge because we have been trained by the Industrial Revolution to view the human body as a simple combustion engine. Put the right chemical fuel in, get the right mechanical result out.
Exactly. Why is my emotional opinion of the doctor dictating the efficacy of the medicine?
Because the chemical compound is only half the equation. The human being swallowing the pill is a vastly complex, highly sensitive psychoneuroimmunological organism.
Psychoneuroimmunological. Okay, we definitely need to unpack that.
It simply means that your psychology, your nervous system, and your immune system are physically wired together. They are not separate systems. They are a single, continuous feedback loop.
This sounds a lot like the conversations happening in the deep spirituality and consciousness space right now.
It really does.
Like if you look at the Soul Boom podcast with Rainn Wilson, he had Reza Aslan on talking about the nature of belief. He had Arthur Brooks discussing the science of happiness and human connection, and Richard Rohr talking about deep spiritual integration.
Or look at the Buddha at the Gas Pump podcast with Rick Archer.
Yes, another great example. If you take 3 episodes from Rick's show, like his interviews with Adyashanti on awakening, or Rupert Spira on the nature of consciousness, or Locke Kelly on somatic awareness.
They all touch on this exact phenomenon, that your internal state dictates your physical reality.
Exactly. If there is emotional friction in the interpersonal relationship between the patient and the doctor, that psychological friction almost always manifests as physical friction in the treatment itself.
So you are saying that if I think my doctor is a jerk, my body physically processes the medicine differently? Or am I just subconsciously sabotaging myself?
It is a mix of both behavioral sabotage and actual measurable neurobiology. The most obvious factor is behavioral compliance, which Osman highlights. Let's do an extended thought experiment to show how this breaks down mechanically.
Let's do it.
Imagine you go in for a chronic, complex issue, say severe hypertension, or an autoimmune flare-up. You receive the exact same prescription and the exact same difficult lifestyle advice from two entirely different people.
Okay, I'm picturing it. Same drugs, different doctors.
Scenario A. The doctor is a dismissive stranger.
Hmm.
You waited an hour and a half in a sterile waiting room. They rushed into the room, barely made eye contact, stared at a laptop screen the entire time, handed you a piece of paper with a prescription, and walked out in under 4 minutes.
And they completely talked over you when you tried to explain your specific symptoms.
I think almost everyone listening has been in that exact appointment. It is deeply infuriating. Your heart rate is probably higher leaving the clinic than when you walked in.
Exactly. Hold on to that thought about the heart rate because that is the neurobiology kicking in.
Okay, holding on to it.
Now, scenario B. The doctor is a trusted mentor. This is someone who has studied for over a decade to gain the competency to practice, as Osman emphasizes in the text.
But beyond their technical competency, they know you.
Yes, they've been your doctor for 5 years. They sit down, they look you directly in the eye, they listen to your concerns without interrupting, they explain exactly why they are prescribing this specific medication, and they answer your questions with patience and deep respect.
The emotional difference is night and day. I would feel safe in scenario B.
Now, fast forward 2 weeks into the treatment. The medication has some mild but highly annoying side effects. It makes you a little nauseous in the mornings, or perhaps you have to drastically restrict your diet to accommodate it.
In scenario A, with the dismissive, laptop-staring doctor, what is the realistic likelihood that you push through that nausea, maintain the strict diet, and finish the full 6-month course of treatment?
Honestly, almost zero. I would hit that first wave of nausea, look at the pill bottle, and think, this arrogant doctor didn't even listen to my symptoms. They probably misdiagnosed me anyway.
Why should I suffer through this?
Right. I'd throw the pills in the trash and go right back to YouTube to find a different solution.
Precisely. Your lack of respect for the authority figure breeds a lack of trust in the protocol,
Right.
which completely destroys your behavioral compliance.
But the neurobiology goes even deeper. Let's look at the nocebo effect, the evil twin of the placebo effect.
The nocebo effect, where your negative expectations actually cause negative physical symptoms.
Yes. In scenario A, because you felt dismissed and stressed, your body's sympathetic nervous system activated. You produced excess cortisol and adrenaline.
That stress response literally alters your gut motility and your liver's metabolic rate.
So not only are you less likely to take the pill, but when you do take it, your body, flooded with stress hormones, might literally absorb the chemical compound less efficiently or amplify the experience of the negative side effects. The interpersonal friction created biological friction.
Wow. So the psychological state of the patient, induced by the doctor's behavior, alters the physical efficacy of the treatment. And in scenario B, with the trusted doctor.
In scenario B, the trust and respect you feel downregulates your nervous system. You feel safe. You believe in the treatment because you believe in the person who prescribed it.
So when the nausea hits, you think, Dr. Smith warned me this might happen, but she knows what she's doing. I'll push through.
You comply with the behavior, and your relaxed nervous system optimizes the absorption of the medicine.
This is exactly Osman's point. He explicitly says we must respect the decades these professionals spend studying. The likelihood of you taking the full course of antibiotics or actually committing to a brutal dietary change hinges almost entirely on that deeply human trust.
It is a deeply pragmatic, almost mechanical understanding of human nature. Osman knows that no matter how flawless the localized data is, and no matter how perfect the chemical science is, if the human delivery system, the relationship, fails, the science is utterly useless.
Which brings us to a really beautiful and somewhat unexpected synthesis. We need to talk about how Osman integrates these two seemingly opposed worlds. Because despite making the most robust, logically sound argument for respecting your traditional local medical doctor that I have heard in a long time, Osman is not a Western medical doctor himself.
Right. The source material is very clear about his identity. He is a practitioner of ancient sciences.
He has 50 years of experience in this. He is a bioenergy healer on a master level.
And we should highlight the intensity of that experience. He is engaged in intensive and rigorous practice, which extended up to 18 hours a day in certain stages of his life.
18 hours a day, that is staggering.
And even currently, he practices a minimum of 8 to 10 hours a day, just sharpening the sword, as he puts it. This is why he has the uncommon ability to heal on very serious levels with such high success rates.
And it is why his treatments and consultation fees are not inexpensive. He offers an incredibly premium service.
Yes, but he also offers a massive amount of free guidance. He teaches advanced yoga and meditation and actively promotes his website, yogawellness786.com.
Yeah, that website is a great resource. We should remind you, the listener, that there is a free 5-minute yoga and meditation program that's available for download right from his website, yogawellness786.com.
He discusses contemporary wellness matters there and offers these natural methodologies to improve life. He even has a Patreon channel to access paid live daily video or online lessons, one-to-one consultations, and requests for group sessions or talks.
But he doesn't withhold any information on his YouTube channels. All the relevant information can be found for free on his YouTube channel without the need to engage any of his paid services.
The only paid service, which is exclusively available on a paid platform, is the energy healing service, which of course is a premium level and at a premium price.
But, and this is the absolute crux of his philosophy, he emphatically states that his methods are not a replacement for medical treatment.
That boundary is a crucial distinction, and it speaks volumes about his intellectual rigor and humility.
He even notes that despite being steeped in the yoga and meditation field for several decades, whenever he needed to consult for his own health, which he admits was rare, but still happened, he always went to one trusted, licensed medical professional.
If we look at how the wellness industry generally operates today, you constantly see alternative practitioners positioning themselves in direct, hostile opposition to traditional medicine.
Oh, it is constantly framed as a war. It's big pharma and toxic Western medicine on one side and pure natural healing on the other. It's an incredibly dogmatic us versus them mentality.
You see influencers implying that if you do yoga and drink green juice, you shouldn't ever need an antibiotic, or that if you go to a traditional hospital, you are somehow betraying your holistic spiritual journey.
Exactly. Many alternative spaces thrive financially by creating profound distrust of the established medical system. They create a false dichotomy. But Osman does the exact opposite.
He positions his 50 years of ancient practice as an enhancement, a complementary system that exists alongside, not in place of, localized medical science.
And his mission is to encourage as many people into a scientific approach. A result-based and simplified methodology drawn from the ancient yoga and meditation sciences.
Because these ancient sciences have a deep, profound history of nervous system regulation. If you look at the works of people like Swami Sivananda from the Divine Life Society or Paramahansa Yogananda.
Yes, especially information from his book, Autobiography of a Yogi.
Exactly. Or the teachings of Swami Vivekananda and Sri Ramakrishna. They were all pointing toward this deep scientific understanding of the human bioenergy system long before modern psychoneuroimmunology caught up.
Even figures like Gopi Krishna and Dr. Bonnie Greenwell, who have written extensively on Kundalini and the biological reality of energy awakening, they show that this isn't just metaphor. It is a biological reality that requires respect and scientific understanding.
Which is what Osman has spent his lifetime doing. Tirelessly trying to simplify very complex protocols, basically to achieve a result in as easy a method as possible.
He hopes that his efforts will help to revive a very ancient and lost science, which could benefit current society tremendously in improving their life in every aspect, including health, peace of mind, social life, relationships, and finances.
And he has, in his life, influenced and changed many lives for the better, and saved countless lives, and hopes to continue doing so through his social platforms and videos.
You can even listen to his podcast on these topics on both Apple Podcasts and Spotify by searching for his channel.
So what does this all mean for us? For you, the listener, who is just trying to navigate your own health without getting pulled into extremes?
It means we need to embrace the nuance of what true integrative health looks like. Osman acknowledges a fundamental, undeniable truth. You have a medical condition, an acute illness, or a systemic disease, you need a licensed medical professional.
You need the objective, rigorous science, the localized epidemiological knowledge, the bureaucratic power to write a prescription, and the diagnostic tools of a local doctor.
But he also implicitly suggests that traditional medicine, while absolutely necessary, does not encompass the entirety of what it means to be well.
Right. The local doctor is essential for fixing the broken bone, prescribing the localized antibiotic, or tracking the 10-year data trend of your thyroid.
But that same doctor, with their 15-minute appointment slots, is likely not equipped to manage your daily existential stress, your energetic balance, or your baseline peace of mind.
And that is exactly where the ancient sciences come in. It is not Eastern versus Western or natural versus pharmaceutical. It is about recognizing the specific utility of different tools for different jobs.
I love that framing. You wouldn't use a hammer to turn a screw. You don't use a YouTube video to get a legally binding prescription for an infection. And you don't necessarily go to your local orthopedic surgeon to learn how to meditate and calm your central nervous system after a stressful day.
This points toward a much more mature, dual-track approach to human health. True wellness requires both the subjective, deeply personal, natural practices like the yoga and meditation that Osman offers, and the objective, empirical, highly regulated science of local medical doctors.
It's a beautiful, balanced way to look at it. You respect the bureaucracy, the licensing, and the science for the heavy lifting of disease management. But you take ownership of your daily vitality through ancient natural practices.
It requires profound humility from everyone involved. It requires the patient to admit they need a doctor's localized expertise, and it requires the wellness practitioner to admit the limits of their natural methodologies. Osman models that humility perfectly in this source text.
He really does. Okay, we have covered a massive amount of ground today, diving deep into the hidden mechanics of how we seek healing. Let's distill the main aha moments for you to take away from this deep dive.
The first major takeaway is recognizing the dangerous illusion of the idealistic environment on the internet. No matter how many degrees the person on your screen has, they are speaking to a statistical average that doesn't exist.
Right. They do not know your unique biological variables, and the halo effect tricks us into trusting them anyway.
Second, we have to understand the critical, albeit unglamorous, importance of localized medical licensing. Bureaucracy isn't just arbitrary red tape. It's an epidemiological safeguard that ensures your doctor understands the specific environment you live in and has the legal power to actually get you the medicine you need through the local pharmacy system.
Third, we explored the incredible data-driven power of sticking with one doctor. Avoid the temptation of the telehealth gig economy. Let a professional build the compound interest of your medical history so they can spot the subtle shifts in your unique baseline over time.
And fourth, the profound psychological necessity of actually respecting your physician. The efficacy of the treatment is physically tied to your relationship with the provider.
If you don't respect the person writing the prescription, the psychoneuroimmunological friction means the treatment is far more likely to fail. Human connection is the literal delivery system for medical science.
And if you found this balanced, highly pragmatic, and scientific approach to wellness interesting, you should absolutely explore more of Osman's work to see how he balances these worlds.
Yes, as we mentioned, Osman is the blind Muslim yogi with 50 years of experience in these fields. He applies these ancient sciences to contemporary life as an enhancement to traditional medicine. You can find his resources, including that free 5-minute yoga and meditation program we mentioned, at his website, yogawellness786.com. It is definitely worth checking out if you want to explore the daily, natural side of that dual-track health equation.
Before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over, building entirely on what we've discussed today. We spent a lot of time diving into the neurobiology of respect, and Osman's core point that our willingness to heal and our willingness to strictly follow medical protocols is deeply tied to a long-term personal relationship with our doctor.
Right, the whole idea that if there's no human trust, the physical treatment fails because of biological and behavioral non-compliance.
Exactly. So, considering the massive, rapid technological advancements we are seeing right now in healthcare, what happens to our health outcomes in the near future as we increasingly replace local, human doctors with incredibly smart but entirely impersonal artificial intelligence diagnosticians?
Oh, wow. That changes the entire landscape.
If an AI can perfectly analyze your 10-year medical history, cross-reference it with global localized data in milliseconds, and spit out the mathematically flawless, perfectly tailored protocol, well, will you actually follow it if there is no human being sitting across from you, looking you in the eye and earning your respect?
If the mountaintop oracle is just a humming server farm, do we still trust the prophecy enough to swallow the pill? That is a fascinating, slightly terrifying question to end on. You came here today to cut through the noise of digital health advice, and hopefully, by exploring the mechanics of trust, data, and geography, we've helped you map out a much clearer, more grounded path forward. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.